We invented real estate software almost 5 decades ago. And today, we're redefining it for the future with you. MRI.
Hello, everybody. So good to be with you again this week. You are watching the third episode of Realcomm Live. Excited to be here. We got some great guests today, and I got to say that now as we're entering in the final weeks of September and COVID continues, it's really kind of interesting to see how the industry is reacting and what they're doing to make buildings safer and feel better for tenants to come back. We got two great guests today. We got Clint Osteen, Senior IT Director for Granite, and Charles Whiteley, Digital Transformation Lead for ExxonMobil. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a perspective from a landlord and from a tenant. And so that juxtaposition will give us an ability to understand both sides of this urge and desire to get back into building safely. So with that, what I'd like to do is bring on our first guest, Clint. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Jim.
Good to see you.
Good to be here. It's always fun to have a chat with our good friends at Realcomm.
You look like a professional speaker or a radio host. Is this another career you're thinking about?
No, my kids and people here at the office keep teasing me. It looks like I'm playing video games.
Well, you know, if all else fails, we can start talking about sports. I mean, you look the part. You look great.
Appreciate it.
So before we get into the meat of the conversation, overall, how are you doing? How's Granite doing? What's the temperature, you know, in the office? How are people feeling?
You know, it's starting to get back to normal. We're still a long way from, the old normal, but here in Texas, especially in the part of Texas where we are, schools are already back in person. And so as a result, here in our office, we have a lot of folks here. So we're starting to get back to the office. I've been coming back to the office for 3 weeks with, all the protocols we have in place. Folks are starting to feel better about coming back to the office. We're not quite there, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, that's encouraging. I mean, last week we were talking a little bit about New York, just nudging a little bit above that 10% occupancy level, 10, 12, I think is where we're at. And, for a city that's bustling and, one of the most vibrant cities in the world, that's not a good number. But, every week we're starting to hear a little bit more. So let's get right into it. You guys did not rest on your laurels. You didn't sit waiting. You kind of dove head into this thing, right? You said, what is the problem? What needs to be solved? Can you give us a little bit of an overview of the program you've developed, and then we're going to start getting into some of the details.
Sure. We here at Granite, we believe that it's important for our customers to feel safe as they come back to the office. I mean, our business is the office, and so we want folks to feel comfortable and as safe as we can make it for them to come back. That being said, we knew there were going to be a series of protocols because things have changed, and so a big focus around touchless, so following the social distancing guidelines. And for me, I mean, my wife is actually in the medical field, and she's also a high risk. She has a congenital heart condition. And as a result, she's very focused on air, and air has become kind of one of our big target areas and a big part of the investment we've made in our buildings. Because as you know, a lot of these buildings, and especially we're primarily centered in the southern United States, so California, all the way to Georgia, all across the southern United States. And as a result, HVAC and air conditioning is a big part of our buildings and a big part of our tenants or our customers' comfort. And right. So that's a big thing right now during this age of COVID and what's been going on in the world. So we have a big investment in needlepoint bipolar ionization, which is a technology that allows us to more effectively scrub the air. And so, part of our program is, trying to go to the higher MERV filters. But, again, a lot of these buildings, you can only go so high. And so we said, we got to get it to the next level. And so that's where this needlepoint bipolar ionization comes in, because in a standard building, a MERV 13 filter is kind of where people are targeting to get to. But if you add on this needlepoint bipolar ionization, it allows you to, the way that it's been described to me is it adds a 5 MERV equivalency to whatever filter you have.
Yeah, when we did our SWAT tour at the Gaylord, the guys were talking about this a lot. And what I understand is that basically you put technology inside your existing ventilation system, correct?
That's correct.
And as the air flows through it, it gets clean, so to speak. There was also some conversation about wanting to mix fresh air and outside air, but a lot of the systems weren't designed to increase the volume of air required. It gets pretty complicated, but it sounds like this technology has got some real promise to take us to another level of safety.
It really does. We're very excited about it. And like I said, this is a common technology in hospitals. Mm-hmm. So hospitals have been using this technology for a long time. It hasn't been widely adopted because the older versions of the tech emitted ozone at a higher level than people were comfortable with. So that's why it was really limited and only recommended through ASHRAE for hospitals. Mm-hmm. And now this technology, emits essentially zero ozone. So they fix that problem, and you still get all of the benefits of basically, I think it's a 99% effective rate on scrubbing those particles out of the air and killing those bacteria.
And this is one technology. I mean, we've been, like you, scrambling the planet, looking for everything from these new access control systems that look at blood pressure and temperature and heart rate and UVC robots. We're gonna have a bunch of them, at the conference coming up here in about a month. We've isolated about 6 different technologies. I want to just back it up a second, though. I mean, this is not an easy time for our industry, right? I mean, when you see your buildings empty, 95% in the overnight, and people still a little reluctant. Can you explain a little bit philosophically or fundamentally, how do you find the money and the commitment to do these things at a time when our industry is suffering from, the financial side of this? I mean, people maybe not paying their rents or, leases being not renewed. How did you guys come to the conclusion that you needed to make the investment despite the financial challenge?
Again, when we get the all clear, and so the government, local and state officials start to tell us, everything is starting to get under control and people are going to come back. We still, as a landlord, have to do our best to make our customers feel safe when they come back, right? So to us, this was not optional. This was you have to do it. You have to figure out a way to make people feel safe when they come back. Right. And so, we're having to do everything that we can, that's reasonable and effective. I mean, for us, there's a lot of things, as every day we're getting new information on this thing. It's an ever evolving and changing landscape right now in terms of safety measures. Right. And so consistency, the one consistent thing is this whole air thing. Because as you said, in these, especially in the Southern United States where you've got heat, you're dealing with how hot it is. You cannot recycle the air in the building as much as you can where it's cooler, right? Because otherwise you'll never get the buildings to a temperature that's comfortable. Right. And so in order to do that, you got to figure out other ways. So other things, like I said, we're upgrading the MERV ratings on our filters everywhere we can. We are maximizing that recycling of air. We're also putting in UV technology to clean some of the filters, to try to additionally clean the filters. So, like I said, it's one of those things where one thing isn't going to do it. You gotta have a program. And so in
Right.
addition to that, it goes back to social distancing. But it's interesting because here in the office that we're in, we're starting to see more and more people come into the office. So the two-person to right now, the way we started was two persons to an elevator. Well, as the building starts to fill up, that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But we also have, we've added a ton of signage in our buildings to give people direction and guidance around social distancing. We're encouraging everyone, and everyone in our company is wearing PPE and masks. We're big believers, masks make a difference.
Right.
And so we've got a policy for our folks that we're wearing them unless you're in your office or at your desk. And then we're encouraging all of our customers to do that. So I think, again, as people start to get a handle, and right now you're seeing the caseloads go down,
Yeah.
all the signs are going in a positive direction, but as we know, that could change tomorrow. And
Yeah.
so we've got to continue to do everything we can to try to make it safe.
Yeah, and what I'm really excited about what you guys are doing is you're doing something, okay? And there are people out there that are doing nothing, right? And I say, we're in the built environment, the built industry. We need to be taking the lead on figuring this out. And I told the story last week about restaurants in my town. They closed. They started with takeout. They went to 1 table, 2 table, 4 table umbrellas, pop-up tent, to the point where my favorite restaurant now is a circus tent. And the owner told me they're doing more business than they did last year. Okay, and so we don't go from 0 to 100 overnight. We have to go in incremental steps. And the things you've done to make people feel comfortable and safe are exactly the things that need to be done. I mean, do you see your peers moving this aggressively, or how do you think our industry is responding to this?
I think our industry is responding every way they can. And unfortunately, it's really comes down to specific markets in different parts of the United States and what's happening, because as we know, New York is still a lot more locked down than Texas. California is still more locked down than Colorado. And so we're all having to adjust based on our markets, and we're doing the same thing. And I think all of my peers in the office space are all doing everything they can, because it's going to be challenging enough, because during this, and we call it the big work from home experiment. Technology was enabling people to work from anywhere already. That was something that was coming, and this just accelerated it by probably 10 years.
Yep,
10 to 15 years. And so we knew that was coming, and so we were working on things to help us get ready for that. And this just made us, everybody's having to sprint.
That is the billion-dollar question. I mean, we've been mobile workers for 30 years. WeWork and co-working really put a spotlight on densification and flexibility. But you're absolutely right. This has been an accelerant. So when we do come out of this, it's going to be real interesting to see what percentage stay home, how many people demand in-office 5 days, what's the combination. Getting rid of that commute is a good thing. Staying off the trains are a good thing. And so what we're hearing and trying to get the message out is, we don't know what the office is going to look like on the other side, but we got to collaborate. We got to swing the bat. We got to try things. Maybe they don't work. But I don't think we ever go back to the old normal. I think the new normal is going to look different.
It's definitely going to look different. And at the end of the day, right now, safety is number one priority. And we want people to feel safe when they come back to a Granite property. And we think, in my opinion, is our peers to be successful, that they're doing the same thing. Everybody is in the same boat right now, because we want our customers to come back to the office. And I think it's, at the end of the day, I don't think anyone believes that offices are going to go away, because there's so many things you get from being in a collaborative space and working closely with people, and that human interaction. I mean, I can tell you from my perspective, when you go 3 months where the only human interaction you're getting is the folks in your house, you're dying to get out.
I've heard about more threatened motorcycle trips and long hikes. No, I hear you. And I was talking with Mark Golan from Google yesterday and a couple of days ago, and we were just talking about that socialization. Human beings are social animals. They need to be around. And you can do your grunt work heads down, from anywhere. But when you're brainstorming ideas, problem solving, there's nothing like being in a room full of people and letting the ideas fly and the debate take place. So. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this. We continue to try to get the message out. Obviously, technology and COVID tech specifically going to be a big topic at our upcoming hybrid event at the end of October. A little bit of virtual, a little bit on site. We're going to we did not know what a hybrid event was going to be, and it's changed 100 times since we started. But you don't learn sitting in the first row. You learn at the plate, right? And
Right.
What I've learned in the last 3-4 months is exciting, and we're going to be excited to share it. And so I look forward to sharing all those topics with you at that point. And I really do appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
All right. Be well. Take care.
Thanks.
All right. Clint has been just a wonderful, longtime supporter of Realcomm and a great IT guy, great CIO. And really is really leaned in. I mean, there's one thing to, sit and listen to people, and it's another thing to lead. And he has just been a commensurate leader over the last 20 years that I've known him. All right, so let's take a brief moment and hear from one of our sponsors, Real Foundations, another company that's been with us from the beginning. A great organization, does great work, and let's hear what they have to say.
Real Foundations is a professional services firm focused on helping companies that develop, own, operate, or invest in real estate make smarter, more profitable decisions. From the building itself to the way it's developed, operated, and capitalized, no firm understands the inner workings of the entire real estate ecosystem as well as Real Foundations. We make real estate run better.
All right, and a big thanks to Real Foundations for their continuous support. All right, so we just had a great conversation with the landlord, the person who leases the space to the tenants. And on the tenant side, they come in all shapes and sizes. You've got big major corporations, you've got mid-sized companies, and of course, you got mom and pops. So what we thought would be a nice balance to today's conversation of a prominent landlord leaning in was a big tenant. And not too many bigger than ExxonMobil. So with that, I'd like to bring in Charles Whiteley, the Digital Transformation Lead. I met Charles how are you, sir?
Good Jim, doing well. Thanks for asking.
Met Charles, feels like about 5-7 years now. I said, he is the future of our industry. This is one crazy guy, one of the most determined, smart people I've ever met. Just doesn't stop and took on some massive projects with the real estate portfolio with ExxonMobil. And not only do they have the vision, but most importantly, you guys are capable of executing, and so why don't you just give us a little bit of your background, a little bit of ExxonMobil and your role, and then let's dive right into how you're responding to COVID from a business and a technology standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim, and always a pleasure to participate in these Realcomm events. You guys are doing great things for the industry in whole, so just really happy to be on the call today. So ExxonMobil, right? So obviously our core focus is oil and gas, but within our function, we operate, all across the globe. So our commercial real estate portfolio, currently ENPS operates in 37 countries, 85 locations, manage roughly 25 million square feet of commercial real estate, variety of different site personas, right? So within our function, we've got kind of a strategy and commercial group. So everything tied to workplace design, workplace of the future. All of our kind of commercial activities happen in that part of our function. We've got a global projects organization, so a team that actually goes out and builds sites all across the world. Our operations and facilities group. So again, managing all of that real estate takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of work. And, great, the team does a great job. And then our environmental portfolio. So we actually manage, 5,000 plus active remediation sites at various phases of that life cycle globally, right? And it's very important for the organization that we steward the land that we've been on and put it in a better position and or shape for the future tenant and or owner.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about you guys is, not just the size and scope of the portfolio, but the different types of real estate that you have to deal with, right? Everything from an office building to an oil rig. And we have
a variety of site personas, yeah, for sure.
And I got to tell you, I mean, I'm obviously around a lot of organizations, but I really love about you guys is, an idea comes up, you got a vision, you look at each other, you say it's a good idea, and then you just go do it. And I was talking to Jared last week, and we were talking about, how many people are in offices and are different people around the world coming in at different rates. He goes, well, let me check. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, let me see who's, sitting in an office in, Barcelona or something like that. And I go, how are you going to do that? He goes, well, our tracking system allows us, occupancy tracking allows us. And I go, you guys really did that? And he goes, yeah. He goes, there's 13 people in the office. He says, at the end of the day. And so, I mean, I have just been so impressed with the size and the scale of your organization for you guys to actually pull these things off, not just from a hype standpoint, but really long-term, practical. And who would have thought your occupancy tracking would become so valuable, once a pandemic hit the planet, right? And so hats off to all that. So you shared with me some stuff that you're doing right now, and it got really technical really quick. Why don't you take a couple minutes and show people or tell people, what you're doing on this specific technology, because it's above my pay grade.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, right? So I'm definitely a nerd at heart, and those that know me, I know, it's okay, right? I'll throw it out there. So
I think we like nerds.
Yeah, so I think kind of slide one, right? So I presented on a couple other webinars in regards to the investments we've made over the last couple of years, focused on IoT, right? So Internet of Things. And, I think when we started this journey a couple of years back, we took a slightly different approach. We understood that what we had done at our Houston campus was, obviously best in class. So we were recognized last year with a Digi Award, thanks to kind of the industry and Realcomm for that recognition. But, these type of investments to scale at our size, globally, and we have to think about things a little bit differently. So the work that we did tied to the IoT platform was really foundational to being able to start delivering on some of the use cases that we had envisioned way back when, right? So Jim was nice enough to say that, our execution has been, pretty solid over the last couple of years, right? And that's testament to our team, right? This isn't a one-man kind of show, but vision can only be achieved when you've got kind of the right pieces in place to actually execute on that vision. Otherwise, it's just like slideware, right? So I have that slide in there to really kind of address that the other things that I'll be talking about over the next couple of minutes really aren't possible unless you've done the due diligence, you've made the investments up front to have a place to store all of your data in a very consistent way, right? So that's what that slide's meant to kind of tee up.
Okay. You have what's the next part of the story though? I mean, when we went through, you got a couple more slides that go into a little more detail on how this actually specifically relates to COVID in this case.
Yeah, so one of the things that we identified up at our Calgary location is significant challenges with like air pressure, right? So site's not very old, but the way that the building was designed, there was inconsistencies in pressure across the entire kind of landscape of our campus. And that led to significant swings in regards to energy costs, right? And then, up in Calgary, it can be really warm in the summer, really cold in the winter, and just inefficient, right? Not only from a kind of operations and maintenance perspective, so a ton of additional kind of work orders, things of that nature, but outlaid energy costs, resident comfort, just total quality of the air in and out, right? So, something that we had started kind of pre-pandemic, but as we look back at it, it was, actually kind of nice, but it kind of teed up with where we are from an air quality and an air cleanliness and an energy conservation perspective. So, again, I talked about kind of the platform. I'd shared kind of on a previous webinar all the work we've done to data standards. The work at Calgary was really our first parlay into what I would call true AI ML driven prescriptive analytics, right? So whenever anyone comes to me and says predictive analytics, that they can deliver that out of the box, it's like a red flag, right? So I think that in our industry particularly, there's still a lot of work that has to be done to truly get to predictive analytics. So the exercise in Calgary, we identified kind of two key areas around information collection that we thought could generate value. So we looked at airflow sensors and we looked at CO2 sensors, right? Basically the lowest common denominator in regards to our HVAC critical systems. And we built anomaly detection algorithms, right? So we worked with a team called Cerebre, small startup based out of Chicago. No experience in buildings whatsoever, right? So we wanted to take pure play data scientists. We had 3.5 years of historian data and actually build models that looked at anomaly detection in CO2 and airflow sensor readings over time. And kind of the next iteration, once we found that the likeliness of fit in kind of describing an event or an outlier was accurate enough, that's when we started to get the SMEs and the operators engaged to really add some additional context to that model. So,
but I mean, this is really going to a whole nother level of science. I mean, not just the gathering of the information via the sensors, but the protocols to let that data fly through the system, ending up in the AI engine. I am impressed with how our real estate industry, who's not always been on the leading edge of some of this technology, is really catching up and doing some interesting things in this world. Now, I think you had one more slide to kind of close the thought, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and you're right, Jim. And I guess it was really kind of like a science experiment for us because, again, you think about some of these process control environments and some of the different types of environments that ExxonMobil works and operates in, right? So our ultimate objective is closed loop command control, which gets kind of sketchy, right? So there's a whole cultural kind of change component of that we won't get into in this call, but basically our approach was to build a prescriptive model, right? Leveraging data scientists that have no operator experience, and then deploy. These are some screenshots of the dashboard we deployed, again, with our partner Cerebre. We identify an anomaly, right? At that point, the operator engages, goes into the dashboard, he's notified, he or she is notified, and then they add context to the anomaly, right? So they validate it, they add some additional details. We define 40 or 50 different like metadata tags that they could contribute to the event, right, to better inform our model over time, right? So it's data science driven foundation, operator driven context to further train the model. And the intent is early next year for these two particular use cases to go full closed loop control, right? And just notify the operator that set point changes have been made, system changes have been made, things of that nature. So very small scope, very deep, but you know, if we can get to that point, that just it can snowball, right? And then from a resource perspective, regional monitoring perspective, I mean, I'm in the business of reducing headcount, reducing costs, ensuring resident comfort. I mean, this will open a whole new window of opportunities for us within ENPS at ExxonMobil.
And I think it's kind of unfair to try to cover this topic in a 10-minute segment, but you did a wonderful job. I mean, incredible. This is just kind of a preview. A lot of the things we're going to be talking about at our hybrid event at the end of October. And I just got to say thank you again to you and Jared and the entire ExxonMobil team for being a part of this community and doing such a great job. And most importantly, willing to share it, okay? Because a lot of people do great things and they don't want to share it. And you know, when the landlords hear you speak and you hear them speak and we can collaborate between the front of the house and the back of the house, things just get better. So thank you so much for being on today's show and sharing, and I'm really looking forward to these continuing conversations.
Yes, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, you be well. Take care. All right, two great guests, two great topics, which, by the way, they are interrelated. And so right now we're going to go to our third and final segment. We're going to bring Sherry Whitmore on. Sherry is going to give us a little heads up on what the week news looks like in PropTech. Good morning, afternoon, Sherry. How are you?
Good morning, Jim. I'm doing well. And good afternoon and good evening to our viewers.
To our viewers, yeah. I understand we had a busy news week. What are the top three?
We did. So actually, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln is our headline, our lead headline, thank you, for the week, with their face-to-face with space approach to reopening and a hybrid model this fall. To safely bring students back for in-person classes, the school adopted intensive health safety protocols, the first of which included FDA certification to produce their own sanitizer on campus. Their ITS team evaluated classroom tech and upgraded infrastructures to avoid congestion with online learning. They also increased Wi-Fi coverage to extend classes outside of buildings. A lot of innovative grassroots leadership and operations at UNL. Our second story takes us to Huawei Connect 2020, an information and communications technology hybrid event that launched this week and runs the entire month of October. Business Insider reported yesterday that Huawei announced an all-scenario intelligent connectivity solution for technology, network, and industry scenarios. These solutions will help the multinational tech giant deliver intelligent connectivity that is characterized by ubiquitous gigabit, deterministic experience, and hyper-automation to build industry intelligent twins. During the event, Huawei customers from Shenzhen Airport, China Southern Power Grid, and SPD Bank shared their application of Huawei connectivity across the transportation, electricity, and finance sectors. Announcing a 40-year focus on intelligent connectivity will certainly keep the world's eyes on the company. And yesterday alone, more than 12.3 million viewers watched the intelligent connectivity session on Twitter, Jim. I'm going to wrap it with those two top stories just so we can keep things moving. But a reminder that more industry news, views, and trends can be found on realcomm.com.
Wow. Yeah, that second story, we've obviously been following the Huawei story. We are going to have a lot of China tech conversations from not just a 5G perspective, but a next generation telecommunications architecture. What role do building owners play in that role? And then also looking at the competition coming from the other side of the world. So thank you so much for all the hard work you do and those great stories that come out every week. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, before we wrap, we're going to say one more thank you to one of our great sponsors, Enlighted. Been with us for a number of years, constantly innovating, coming out with great products. So let's hear a brief word from them, and then we're going to wrap it and tell you what's coming next week. All right, so that wraps episode 3. What did we learn this week? We learned that landlords are busy trying to figure this out. We learned that tenants, big ones, are learning how to figure this out. We're learning that collaboration is the key to this. But what I continue to take away from all these conversations is the importance of doing something. There are still a number of people out there who seem a bit awestruck and can't really figure out what some of the next steps might be. I don't think we're seeing tenants come back into buildings anytime soon, not to 100%. I don't believe that it's going to be the old normal. I believe there's going to be some new normal. And the best way to figure all that out is, in fact, with trying things, not being afraid to fail. And I don't think we get out of this and come back stronger without being at that plate swinging and being okay with striking out. So with that, I'd like to say thank you. And I ask you to look forward to join us next week, where Kevin Danahy from Brookfield and Robert Enton from Vornado are going to join us. 2 powerhouse real estate organizations are going to share some of their stories and their successes and possibly their failures as we all struggle and move to get out of this COVID situation and get back to the new normal, whatever it may look like. So with that, we close episode number 3, and thank you for listening.